You're different from your family, and you've always known it. Not better, not worse, just fundamentally different. Like you came from somewhere else and were accidentally placed in the wrong bloodline. You look around at your parents, your siblings, your relatives, and you think, how am I related to these people? We don't think the same way. We don't value the same things. We don't see reality through the same lens. And for the longest time, you thought something was wrong with you. You thought maybe you were broken. Maybe you were ungrateful. Maybe you were the problem. Because everyone else in the family seems fine with how things are. Everyone else accepts the patterns. Everyone else follows the rules. Everyone else plays their assigned role in the generational drama that's been running for decades, maybe centuries. But you can't. You tried. You really did. You tried to fit in. You tried to be who they wanted you to be. You tried to follow the script. But something inside you kept refusing. Something deeper than your conscious choice kept saying no. This isn't right. This isn't true. This isn't how life has to be. That something, that refusal, that's not rebellion. That's not selfishness. That's not you being difficult. That's your soul recognizing why you're here. That's your consciousness understanding the assignment you accepted before you were born. Because here's what nobody tells you. You weren't randomly placed in your family. You were strategically positioned. You were chosen, specifically, deliberately, to do one thing: break the cycle. Every family has patterns, ways of thinking, ways of relating, ways of handling pain, money, love, conflict, success, failure. These patterns get passed down like genetic code, parent to child, generation after generation. And most people never question them. They just absorb them. They become them. They pass them on. But then someone like you comes along. Someone who can see the patterns. Someone who can feel how toxic they are. Someone who refuses to participate. And that person becomes the circuit breaker. The one who says, this ends with me. Whatever dysfunction, whatever trauma, whatever limitation has been running through this bloodline. For generations, it stops here. You're that person. And if you're watching this, if these words are landing in your chest like recognition, then you already know it. You've always known it. You just didn't have language for it. You didn't understand that what felt like alienation was actually activation. What felt like not belonging was actually your soul preparing you to create something completely new. Let me tell you how this works, how reality actually structures these generational pattern breaks. Because it's not random, it's not chaotic, there's an architecture to it. And once you understand the architecture, once you see the mechanism, everything that's happened to you starts making sense. First, you're born with heightened sensitivity. You feel more than other people in your family. You notice more. You're affected by emotional atmospheres that others don't even register. This isn't weakness, this is equipment. You were given extra sensitive perception so you could detect the patterns that everyone else is blind to. Second, you experience the family dysfunction more intensely. What others tolerate, you can't. What others normalise, you find intolerable. The manipulation tactics that worked on everyone else don't work on you. The guilt trips that controlled others bounce off you. Not because you're cold, but because you're calibrated differently. You're tuned to a different standard. Third, you're drawn to growth, healing, transformation. While others in your family are fine staying the same. You're constantly seeking to understand yourself, to heal your wounds, to become more conscious. You read, you reflect, you question everything. This drive isn't about self-improvement. This is you preparing for your actual function. You can't break patterns you haven't understood. You can't heal what you haven't examined. Fourth, you become the black sheep. The weird one. The one who doesn't fit. Family gatherings feel like torture. Small talk feels meaningless. The roles everyone plays feel like theatre. And you start pulling away, not out of judgment, but out of preservation. Because being around the old patterns when you're awakening to new possibilities, it's like poison. It's like trying to breathe underwater. Fifth, you face the choice. Stay and conform, or leave and individuate. This choice usually comes in your 20s or 30s, though sometimes earlier, sometimes later, and it's not a small choice. It's the choice, because staying means sacrificing your soul to maintain family harmony, and leaving means accepting that you might never be understood by the people you came from. Most people who are chosen for this role eventually leave. Not always physically. Sometimes it's emotional departure. Sometimes it's spiritual separation. But there's a leaving. There has to be. Because you can't break a cycle. You're still embedded in. You can't create new patterns while being pressured to maintain old ones. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. And here's what makes this so hard. Why this role, this assignment of breaking generational cycles, why it's one of the most painful paths you can walk. Because you're not just changing yourself, you're threatening the entire family structure. And that structure will fight back. When you start refusing to play your role, when you start setting boundaries, when you start living differently, the family system experiences you as a threat. Not consciously, not maliciously, but the patterns themselves, they have a survival instinct. They want to continue. They've been running for generations. They're not going to stop just because one person wakes up. So the family applies pressure. They guilt you. They shame you. They tell you you're selfish. They tell you you're abandoning them. They tell you you think you're better than everyone. They weaponize your love. They weaponize your loyalty. They do everything possible to pull you back into the pattern. Because if you break free, if you actually succeed in living differently, you become proof that change is possible. And that proof is dangerous to everyone who chose not to change. This is why cycle breakers often face the most resistance from their own families, why they're often excluded, criticised, pathologised. It's not personal, it's structural, the pattern defending itself. And if you don't understand this, if you think your family's rejection means something's wrong with you, you'll give up, you'll go back, you'll sacrifice your mission to regain approval. But here's what you need to understand. Their rejection is confirmation you're doing it right. Their discomfort with your growth is proof you're breaking the pattern. If they were celebrating your transformation, if they were supporting your individuation, that would mean you're still inside the pattern. The fact that they're resisting, that they're uncomfortable, that means you're actually succeeding. And yes, it hurts. It's supposed to hurt. You're not a robot. These are your people. The ones who raised you. The ones you share blood with. walking away from their approval, accepting that you might never have their understanding. That's grief. Real grief. The death of the fantasy that you could transform and still belong to the old structure. But this grief is necessary. This loss is required because you can't create new legacy while clutching old belonging. You can't birth new patterns while remaining loyal to ancestral dysfunction. Something has to die for something new to be born. And what dies is the version of you that needed family approval to feel valid. So what does breaking the cycle actually look like? What does it mean in practice? Because it's not just about leaving. It's not just about creating distance. Breaking generational cycles is active work, conscious work, specific work. First, you have to identify the exact patterns you're breaking. Not vaguely, specifically. What is the pattern? Is it we don't talk about feelings? Is it we sacrifice ourselves for others? Is it we're victims of circumstance? Is it money is scarce? Is it intimacy is dangerous? Is it we don't trust outsiders? Name it. Clearly, because you can't break what you haven't named. Second, you have to stop participating in the pattern completely. No exceptions. If the pattern is emotional manipulation, you don't engage with manipulation anymore. You don't explain. You don't defend. You don't participate. If the pattern is martyrdom, you stop sacrificing yourself. You stop overgiving. You stop earning love through exhaustion. Whatever the pattern is, you withdraw your energy from it entirely. Third, you have to create the opposite pattern in yourself. This is crucial. It's not enough to just stop the old way. You have to actively live the new way. If the old pattern was scarcity, you practice abundance consciousness. If the old pattern was dishonesty, you practice radical honesty. If the old pattern was emotional repression, you practice emotional expression. You become the living embodiment of the new pattern. Fourth, you have to tolerate being misunderstood. This is where most people fail. They break the pattern, but they can't handle the family's response. They need to explain. They need to justify. They need to be seen as right. But the family will never validate your breaking of their patterns. Never. So you have to find validation elsewhere. In your own integrity, in your own peace, in the life you're building. Fifth, you have to maintain the break, even when it gets hard, even when you're lonely, even when you doubt yourself, even when the old pattern calls you back with promises of belonging. Because the pattern will call you back, it always does. Through guilt, through crisis, through family members who suddenly need you. And you have to stay firm. Not cruel, not cold, but firm. The boundary holds, the break remains. When you do this, when you actually succeed in breaking generational patterns, something extraordinary happens. You don't just change your own life, you change the entire field. You create a new possibility in the family consciousness that didn't exist before. And future generations, your children, your nieces, your nephews, people who haven't been born yet, they inherit that new possibility instead of the old pattern. This is legacy. Not money, not property, not fame. Legacy is the patterns you break and the possibilities you create. It's the chains you refuse to pass down. It's the freedom you make available to people who come after you. And that legacy, that work, is invisible to most people. The family might never acknowledge it. They might never thank you. They might think you just became the weird one who left. But you'll know. You'll know every time you make a different choice. every time you respond with consciousness instead of reacting with conditioning, every time you create peace instead of perpetuating pain, you'll know that you did what you came here to do. You broke what needed breaking. You started what needed starting. And the new legacy you're creating, it won't look like your family's legacy. It won't be loud. It won't be dramatic. It will be quiet things, authentic relationships, emotional honesty, financial health, creative expression, inner peace, connection to something larger than survival. These might sound small, but they're revolutionary when everyone before you was trapped in dysfunction. You were chosen for this because you're strong enough, not perfect, not special, just strong enough to handle the loneliness, to handle the misunderstanding, to handle walking away from belonging in service of truth. Reality doesn't choose the most talented people for this role. Reality chooses the people with enough courage to stand alone. If this video confirmed what you already knew deep down, write in the comments, "I'm the cycle breaker." Write it as your claim. Write it as your acceptance of the role you were born to play. Nobody